Good morning, everyone. How is everyone doing today?
Very well, very well.
Fantastic. Thank you so much for joining. I'm super, super excited to see you and to have you all today. Well, while others are joining, why don't we jump right in? How about that?
Totally fine. You the boss.
You- Sounds great. Okay. Welcome to Work Life Magic webinar masterclass, where we are going to do our best to create the work-life balance that sets you up for well-being, fulfillment, and success. And so many of you already know me, but for those of you who are new, my name is Tatyana Gao, and I'm John Maxwell certified leadership speaker, trainer, and coach. I'm the founder of Manada Coaching and Consulting. And I'm really excited to do this workshop with you. I spend a lot of time to prepare for it because I want to bring the best value to all of you. And to start us off, I found this really sort of like a funny joke picture online. I will give you a moment to read it and I will also read it out loud. I find it helps to organize chores into categories: things I won't do now, things I won't do later, and things I'll never do. So something to laugh about as we're starting to dive into this interesting topic. And also feel free to unmute yourself and comment as you would like. So today we are going to dive into how to effectively manage time, because we're all super busy professionals, business owners, leaders in our businesses, lives. We also have some students who will be joining later. How to organize the process and guide our emotions when things get escalated, and sometimes they do, and that's totally normal. It's a part of life. And how do we wisely set up the boundaries and manage expectations of other people, which always comes up as well as we'll learn more about ourselves. And finally, how do we set our lifestyle for success so that we have more energy and stamina and we can ride that really wonderful wave of happiness and well-being without burning out and getting overly exhausted. So let's dive in. We're going to start with time management. So time is an interesting resource. It is something that we truly can't control at this level. We could control it when we get to higher levels of consciousness, but at the level where we usually operate, it's outside of our control because it just keeps going, right? And our power is in the way that we can self-organize ourselves, in the way we can lead and manage ourselves truly within the 24 hours that we are given each and every day. So we're going to talk about how to maximize this time that we're given. Well, first of all, it's truly in the calendar and scheduling. And I'm going to teach you an exercise. We're going to do an exercise today where we will have the opportunity to dive into that and use that specific tool so you can use that going forward to organize your time. So we will be organizing time in blocks on our calendar. Speaking of the planning, some of you may already know this if you worked with me before, but planning is super important and it actually gives you ease and peace of mind. And this is why. So at the end of the month, you can start sort of like sketching out your month going forward to see what projects, priorities would you like to accomplish, right? And so you can sort of like pinpoint them already and put them on your calendar here and there. And then on Sundays, I usually recommend that either Saturday or Sunday, you spend about 15 to 20 minutes to sort of like look at your week going forward. And plan out what you hope to accomplish that week. Maybe there are some appointments coming up. Maybe there are some client meetings. Maybe there are some important event. Maybe you're speaking at an event, right? And things like that. Or maybe you're applying for jobs and you have some job interviews you need to prepare for, or applications to apply for, and the deadlines. So that's something that can be planned out. And if you plan it out wisely, then you're going to have a lot of time to prepare for different things. And another thing is that it truly works well to plan for the next day. So you planned out your week, right? And so each and every day, start on Sunday night, Monday, Tuesday night, etc., you sort of look at your schedule, your calendar for the next day. And then you see, okay, what has come up that's new? Maybe there are some meetings, maybe you need to drop off the kids at school, or the schedule shifted, and you pinpoint, um, basically already creating clarity for the next day. So when you wake up, you are not drastically or frantically thinking about, oh, what am I going to do today? And sometimes it happens to all of us when we wake up, we have a lot on our list to do, and we're all sort of like a little frazzled and worried. Sometimes it even feels like, for me, in the past, there was something that I experienced when I woke up. I was just starting my business, and there was a lot to do, so many priorities, and all these thoughts. They created so much anxiety in my head. It felt like these thoughts were like flies, and they were constantly in my face, and I was really annoyed and irritated. I don't know if you can relate to this. But so, and we will talk about how to manage this part emotionally and energetically as well. But sort of planning for the next day and for the week really helps to create that clarity and ease. So, three main things to do for one day. Usually, we have a lot going on, and life happens anyway, no matter how well we plan. So, it's truly important to identify not more than 2 or 3 things that you want to accomplish in a day. And then you set the time for them on your schedule as well. So just to be realistic, because when we set realistic expectations of ourselves, we all also kind of, by the end of the day, when we have the chance to accomplish them, we feel good, right? We feel like, oh, I did this. This is awesome. Okay. And then we build that satisfaction, that sense of fulfillment, plus one, plus one, plus one every day. Do you guys have any questions so far? No questions. Okay. And so another really cool trick that you can do when you're scheduling is add a buffer time between meetings and projects. For example, if you need to travel, put that time into your schedule, build it in. And sometimes unexpected things happen, like you need to pick up your kid at school, right? So it's important to leave a little bit of a buffer, and those could be 15 to 30-minute buffers, right? So you can have some flexibility of shifting your priorities as needed. And of course, staying focused is another really important part. Once we create the schedule and you look at your calendar, it looks wonderfully and organized, and now understand what you're doing when. But then following through is another major important part, staying disciplined, right? For following the schedule, and at the same time having flexibility to adjust as new things come up. Maybe somebody gave you a phone call and you need to step away from the project you're working on right now, and things like that. And so to help you stay focused, there is a technique that's called the Pomodoro technique. And basically, it's an idea where you spend a chunk of time, like about 25 to 30 minutes, working really focused on a specific project, sending out email. For example, if you're applying for jobs, you could spend half an hour researching your recruiters, right? Or another half an hour you can spend later on reaching out to those recruiters, right? So, and then it's important to take a little short break right after that. So this way, maybe the break could be like 5 to 10 minutes. So this way you're really focused and you get things done in this half an hour. Then you take a little mental break. Maybe you walk around to get some tea or coffee, and then you come back and you shift to another task. Yeah. And so what it does to our mind, it helps us to clean shift from one subject to another, and it doesn't muddle the things in our mind. Everything stays clear, and then we have clarity, we have ease. All right, so let's talk about scheduling yourself in. And this is something that I talk about a lot, because as busy professionals and business owners and CEOs and leaders, we often forget to do that. And we usually put ourselves very last on the list of things to do. But that results in us sort of like building on that exhaustion and tiredness, instead of creating that sense of well-being and implementing things from the place of feeling good, from the place of being energized and excited about things. And then we start being burnt out and exhausted. We don't show up as well as we would like to. So our leadership might suffer, our management might suffer. And this is why it's so important to put yourself into the schedule. What are we talking about here? For example, put in the lunch on your calendar. Sometimes when I see the calendars of some executives, there is no I like in there. There are all the meetings, all the projects, but there is no lunch. There is no walk. And it is truly important. I think it's important that we understand that we integrate all of that. Work is not separate from life. Work is life. It's just a part of life. But if we don't take care of ourselves, there will be no one else to come and show up for us, right? So, for example, you can put in a lunch break for yourself, lunch and walk, some stretch, a meditation, power pauses, and even the evening unwind routine before bed. Excuse me. And so here, it's really cool to be creative. Creative to in the way that you can see how you can integrate different priorities and put them together. For example, I recently saw a really interesting post of a dad who is a business owner, and he has 3 daughters. And he posted something like, well, I guess I will integrate my priorities. And he shows the video where he's working out with his girls, which is really cool. And I think this is the creativity that we sort of can tap into. Once we tap into the energy flow, I'm going to be talking about this in a few slides later. So see how you can combine the two. Maybe when you're driving to work, or maybe you're driving to drop off your kids, you can be listening to an interesting podcast or to an interesting story that could be both beneficial for the kids if they're in the car and for you. Yeah. So win-win. All right. Priorities. Priorities are super important. We need to know what they are in order for us to plan, to have the vision of where we're going, what we're creating in life. And then when we don't have the vision, and it's hard for us to set the priorities, and then we don't know what the priorities are, it's hard for us to organize ourselves. So there are actually two categories, urgency and importance for the priorities. And maybe you're already familiar with this framework, but I thought it was helpful to talk about this here. So there is something that could be urgent and important, right? So for example, you have a job interview, or you have a prospect client meeting. That's urgent and important, and that needs to happen, right? So you put that on your priority list to prepare for it, right? So you allocate some time to get there, to prepare for it, and you plan out that sort of as it comes closer to the time. Then a priority could be urgent, but not important at the same time. So what could be an example of something like this? So maybe you want to register for a conference, and today, or like in an hour, the deadline for early bird expires. It sounds urgent, but it may not be as important, right? So it really depends on how much weight of importance you put on something as well. There are also non-urgent and important tasks, right? So tasks that could be, for example, if you are applying for a job and the deadline to apply is next Friday, right? So you have all this time until next Friday to prepare your application materials, your resume, maybe get some feedback from your colleagues and friends, from family, and then to actually submit that in the portal, because all of that takes time. Another thing to consider is that we sometimes forget how much time something can take. And that's the trap I used to fall into all the time. When I was starting my business, I was thinking to myself, oh, I can do this like in 15 minutes. And then an hour later. So here's an example as well. Non-urgent and non-important. This is also, sorry guys. Non-urgent and non-important. This is an example of a task or a priority that also could exist. Maybe you would like to create some kind of a project for a colleague or a friend, but the timeline is shifted to like 3 months away. So obviously you have a lot of time, so it's not urgent and not important right now. Yeah. So I wanted to shift back to you for a moment and ask, do you guys have any questions for me?
No questions. Just one thing that I realized about myself where sometimes I have a lot of computer tabs open, and like I would, have my intention of like, oh, maybe I want to get this one thing done, but then like, I run into other tabs and I was like, oh, I forgot to finish that.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden I kind of feel like, oh wow, I need to wrap it up, but like I'm still in the middle of something. I think that's kind of where I feel a little bit overwhelmed, like when I trying to get things done. I just like kind of there's some like unfinished work from the past, and then I just like keep them hanging. So like I just feel like, yeah, maybe there's a better way to manage things like that.
Yeah. I mean, I can totally relate to what you're saying. And I think also there is a difference, what I learned, between how women manage the things on the computer and men, in the way that we as women tend to actually have a lot of tabs open. That's something I learned. Now, I don't know how actually statistically proven this is. So I wouldn't put my my reputation on that. But what I've discovered is truly what really helps is, first of all, have the list of all the sites that are important to you with the password, the login and password information, so you can access it easily. And that's something that really helped me when I was in your situation, in the way of like, I had a lot of projects going on at the same time. And I felt like exactly as soon as I forgot to do this, let me do this. And I was kind of like jumping around the tabs. But what I realized is that the reason why for me it was happening is that I was worried that it would be hard to get back into the website or something like that. So I had a lot of tabs open as well. So what I started doing is that I ran a list of all websites that I work on that are important to me for easy access, basically login information. And that has simplified things a lot. And I hope that if you try, maybe this will be helpful for you as well. But you also have to be disciplined. So another thing is just to learn to say, okay, yes, I remember. And if you see something that you forgot to do, just add that to your list, right? So write it into your list. Okay, yes, I remember. I'm moving this as a priority for today. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that helps.
Okay,
Yeah, thank you.
sure, of course.
Stay organized is key.
Yeah, exactly. Any other questions before we move forward? All right, cool. So here it is, stay disciplined. And discipline is something that could be sometimes hard to stick with, but that is the most important skill in in self-leadership and self-management, staying disciplined, right? So following the schedule, being flexible when needed. And when you go into like responding to someone about a job posting or something like that, and you see a tab open, like, oh, I forgot to do this. It's like, oh, okay, hang on. Wait, let me add this to my list and I will get back to this. So that way you're not going to forget about the task. It will be there in your list and you still will be able to shift back to what you are doing. Okay, so how about we do an exercise? Who is ready to do this with me? I know some of you are maybe driving or listening in from a cell phone, but if you are on your computer, here's what I would like you to do. We're going to do time blocking. So first of all, step one is going to be to identify different priorities, maybe projects or something that you would like to do. I would like you to write them down for professional or business and personal. And it could be professional, family, personal. It really depends on the situation, right? So take a moment to write down your priorities for a moment. So for business could be business strategy and planning, job applications, networking, clients, like client meetings, speaking engagements, maybe marketing, scheduling posts, right? Or it could be if you have some kind of things going on that are more personal, sort of like say sometimes we need to go to a doctor, so you would put that as a priority as well, right? Then you would schedule, write out the priority for families. Maybe it could be dropping off kids at school and picking them up, right? That's a priority for family. Maybe it could be a family dinner or some kind of a family event. And then for personal time, again, the priority would be to maybe do a morning routine. And we'll talk about this a little later today. Exercise, how do you build in your exercise, like health and well-being? Yes. And then maybe you would like to read or learn something, like maybe you would like to take a class. So that could be a priority for on your personal side. So give me a thumbs up when you guys are ready to move forward. Or feel free to unmute and just tell me you're ready. And when you start to identify your priorities, you're really creating clarity about what's important to you. Okay, I see a chat. Perfect. Thank you, Alex. Emily, how are you doing?
Yeah, I'm good too. Thank you. I think the thumbs up is not really working on my end.
Okay, no worries. Thank you. All right. And so the next step is going to be creating different blocks of time for each of the projects that each of the priority that you identified, right? For business, professional, personal, and family. You can color code them so that you know, like if you're a visual person like me, it's really important for me to sort of like differentiate things, because if they're one color, then it just all one big blur to me. So, but for others, it may not be an issue at all. So choose play around and pick and choose what works for you. And then please remember to add those 15 to 30-minute buffer blocks. And I'm going to actually show you, and I'm going to stop sharing for a moment, and I will shift us. Give me 1 second. I'm going to show you what it looks like when you have already created it. All right, I'm going to share my screen again. This time I'm going to share my my calendar. So I created this for you. Can you see this okay? Yeah?
Yes. Yes.
Wonderful. So as you can see, I added a morning routine in the morning for myself. And the morning routine is something that I use to help me align myself in the morning with the divine energy that helps me to be present in the best way possible here. Say, for example, the next could be driving, but where would I be driving? For example, for parents, it could be like you dropping off the kids at school, right? And so then you also add in the drive there and drive back, right? And here's this little buffer block in the middle, given that if there is something that keeps you at that location for a little longer, right? If you need to sort of readjust. And so when you come back and start your day, and here I'm playing around with very different scenarios because we have people in the room who are professionals, but also who are business owners and students. And so based on your situation, it could be basically different. So for example, starting at 9 a.m., it could be business planning. So taking some time to identify the strategies I will be using or you will be using for the week ahead and revisiting them. Maybe there is a marketing campaign you're working on, right? So you will schedule that in. And I give you an example of only one day, but basically your day is sort of every day is going to be looking similar, but different depending on the priorities for that day. And maybe there is a job application that you're working on. So maybe you want to find job postings and spend that hour looking only for job postings that are resonating with you, right? And then here's the lunch and walk, as we find it important for our health and well-being. It's truly important to take the break from the computer, because what I'm even personally finding is that when you are working a lot on the computer, your eyes get tired, your brain gets tired, and also we are constantly on cell phones. So from cell phone to computer, you need to give your head and your eyes a break. So building in the lunch where maybe you would need to walk to a cafe, you're combining the two, you're walking and you're having lunch not at your computer. Does that make sense? I think we have this sort of culture, especially in the corporate world, and in higher education as well, in other places where basically, oh, I'm going to eat through my lunch. I'm going to only do work, no matter how tired I am. But then we get exhausted, and then people get sick because of this. And to be honest with you, things have been shifting a lot towards the well-being to avoid the burnout. And so this is why it's important to prioritize yourself first. And say, so I did this little scenario here, and then pick up the kids from school, right? And time changes for everyone. And maybe you have some client meetings in the afternoon if you're a business owner, or you work on your paper if you're a student. And for example, in the evening, there is a networking event and you're going to that, right? Given that you have your kids with somebody else at your home. So this is just an example, but once you get used to the system, it starts working for you and it creates clarity in terms of what am I doing when. And besides, these things that are not meetings, you can always shift them unless you know that you have a deadline that you need to submit this project by. Does that make sense? And what questions, if any, do you have?
No
Okay.
question.
Okay. So, is any of you on a computer? Are you actually doing it with me? I'm just kind of curious. And if not, you can always do this after the webinar when you get home or when you have the opportunity to do it on your computer. Okay, so this is sort of what this would look like. And Alex is still driving. Yes, I know that. Thank you, Alex. So I'm going to stop sharing for a moment. And we will get back into the next part of our presentation. All right. So try it out, see how this works for you. And if you have any questions, you can always reach out to me and I'll be happy to walk you through the process. It's actually really easy, but in the end, you're going to notice that it's going to save you a lot of time and a lot of anxiety and nerves because you will have the clarity of what you're doing when. You will wake up with clarity of what you're doing for next day, etc. Oh, yay. So if we don't have any questions about the time management and the time blocking, then we're going to shift to managing our emotions and how can we become self-aware and learn how to self-regulate so that things don't upset us as easily. The situations that come up, like even if it's an obstacle, we can look at it as an opportunity. And so we will dive into self-awareness, self-regulation, negative self-talk, and maybe looking into shifting mindset for well-being and success, and leading ourselves when unmotivated. This happens often to all of us. And of course, boundary setting. So I find that emotional intelligence is truly important. Yesterday, I had a conversation with a student, a son of a friend of ours, who basically was playing around with the idea of EQ and IQ. And he was saying like, well, I think that if IQ is really high, if you develop EQ, emotional intelligence, right, then your IQ is going to go down. It was actually really interesting conversation because in fact, IQ doesn't change when you develop EQ. You just develop EQ and you become more powerful in the way how you approach life, how you approach your professional career and business and relationships. So according to Daniel Goleman's framework, there are 4 components of emotional intelligence: self-awareness, self-regulation, social awareness, and relationship management. Today, we're going to talk about the first 2, self-awareness and self-regulation. Self-awareness is the ability to be with yourself, be present with yourself. It's the ability to notice and observe your reaction to a situation, understand your emotions, name them, process them, and release them if they're negative emotions, right? And then also communicate boundaries clearly, respectfully, and directly. And so when we become aware of, even right now, take a moment and notice what your left hand is doing. Here's a quick exercise for you. So what is your left hand doing right now? Is it on your lap? Is it on a steering wheel for Alex? Maybe it's on the desk. Like, what is it touching? So by doing this, you are becoming self-aware immediately because you are bringing your attention to your body. Okay. And you can use that anytime when you feel like you are frazzled or you have a lot going on. We're going to learn how to come back into our body and into our awareness. Self-regulation. Self-regulation is the next step. So basically, once we become aware that something is going on within us, then we learn the ability to control and manage our negative emotions, thoughts, and behavior. And we also learn how to communicate that something isn't working in the relationship to other people, right? Simply, respectfully, and directly. And the boundaries are always a fun part. So here's the cool thing. The world is your mirror. Oftentimes, when people lack awareness, and sometimes it happens to all of us, we come back into the awareness and then we fall out of it because we get busy with things as they shift our focus. There are so many things we get bombarded with every day. So learning to stay focused on you within you is really important. But when things happen that someone says something or does something that makes you angry, it basically is an opportunity to explore this further, because when we are not seeing ourselves from a side, when we don't understand what we're feeling and thinking at the moment, the world is going to show us that. So maybe when that person made you angry, he was showing you, like, without even knowing, completely unaware, but they were showing to you that maybe you have that internal boundary going on that you weren't aware even that you had that. And this person showed it to you. Isn't that cool? So in this way, we could sort of like thank them for, like, oh, thank you for telling me I had this internal boundary. I had no idea. I didn't know that I had this value that was important to me. And so here we are. This is why we need to learn and understand what are our values, what is truly important to us. For example, when you're applying for jobs, one of the things that I usually recommend to my students and clients is to check out the mission of their organization and exactly what they do. And the reason why is to, on the other side, you also know and identify your values, what matters to you. And so when you're applying for jobs and you look for, you already know your values, you already know what's important to you and how you want people to be treated, for example, in the company, right? Then you are going to consciously pick the companies, the organizations that align with your values. And when you do, it is going to be a good match. So again, what is important to you? And finally, communicate to connect. It's important to find this connection with people when we network, when we talk to them on either professional basis or family personal relationship, simply, respectfully, and directly. Do you have any questions so far? Okay. So how do we deal with our triggers or hot buttons, things that pop up all of a sudden and really, shake us up emotionally and put us outside of our comfort zone, and we have to, for example, here's a situation. Say if you're either working with a client who is pushing your boundaries, or you're working with maybe a director has invited you to give you a performance review, right? And a conversation for some reason is getting uncomfortable to you, and you can feel yourself getting frustrated, getting angry. So what do we do when this happens, right? It's really easy sometimes to blur out something that then we start regretting, or spoil a relationship with the person, especially if it's a professional relationship or even a family relationship, right? And so here's the concept of a power pause. A pause is the space, an energetic space between the external stimulus, right, and your response. And so this is where your power lies. And it's really amazing what you can do with it. So instead of reacting back immediately, like a ping pong, like a ball in the ping pong game, right? What you can do is, for example, you're having this conversation with your boss, and then all of a sudden you're starting to feel this reaction. First of all, acknowledge your reaction to a trigger, to yourself. And then if you can, try to step away from the situation, right? Maybe it's okay to say, would you excuse me for a moment? I really need to run to the bathroom. I will be right back. And then either go to the bathroom or go outside and get some fresh air and bring yourself back into your center. Self-regulate to bring your emotions, to calm yourself down, to release that anger, right? Maybe even do like a little short meditation. Well, breathing and meditation are pretty much the same thing. And then the next part is ask yourself, why am I reacting this way? What did this person say that all of a sudden, like they didn't really say anything, for example, but why am I reacting this way? And you always will have the answer to your questions like, oh, wait, I know where this is coming from. Maybe my previous boss was talking to me like this, and now I have this trigger inside me because I decided that I wasn't good enough or something like that, right? Let's see. And sorry, give me 1 second. And then once you sort of brought yourself into the center, right? You calibrated yourself, you calmed yourself down, then you are able to come back into the situation and say, this is not working for me. Is there anything that we can do to shift this? Does that make sense? And so this is the where we communicate simply, respectfully, and directly within our awareness and the situational awareness. Okay. Alex is coming back in. Hi, Alex. Welcome again.
What
So-
if like you stay calm, but then the other person, is not? Then how do you manage the emotions? So let's say you already like, meditate and then you like come back to it. So you already kind of like cool it off, but then the other people that you're dealing with are still running high in emotions.
Well, let's see. So if you already know that this is running too high on the emotion, what you can do and say, like, in a situation where this is a meeting with director, right? You can be respectful and say, would you excuse me, please? I'm not really feeling myself today. Could we please reschedule to another time? You can totally do this. And there is nothing disrespectful in this. You are asking for more time. Like, I'm just not quite feeling it right now. Like, I would really appreciate to have a great conversation with you. Yeah. Another thing that you can do is, because you also have to manage the expectations of others while you're managing your internal battle with emotions, right? So if you can completely take yourself away from the situation, like it could be a different situation, that would be best. Because say, if you walk away and you have the opportunity to come back to them later, maybe you were talking on the phone and there was some kind of the situation, right? You can say, I will reach out. Can we reconnect with you some other time? Or I will follow up with an email with you. Do you have a specific situation that you need help with?
No, nothing specific, but sometimes like if you get in the argument with like someone, then it's hard to, I mean, I like the idea of like just taking a break, but you
Yeah.
know, sometimes like people don't really like to like come back to it. They kind of want to, you know, they probably like, cause like, you know, like I have that tendency to come back to it, but
Mhm.
sometimes like to just like get us like resolved like right away. Like they really want to get to like the bottom of it. So it's like different styles, right?
Right.
Then you kind of, you know, being a little bit like forced into like, oh, you know, I rather coming back to it, and then but the other person doesn't really want to. So you
Mhm.
just kind of, but you know, I think it's good to like kind of like be honest, like, hey, I don't really want to talk about this right now. But then sometimes like it might piss off the other person even more because the other person prefer to like
Yeah.
get it to the bottom right away, you know?
Yeah.
So
And that's the thing. Maybe saying that I don't want to talk about this right now could sound a little offensive to another person. But maybe if you worded it in another way, because what happens is that when stakes are high, emotions are really high, right? So because the emotions are really high, unless both of you are going to bring your steam down, the conversation is not going to be conducive to anything positive. And so by you walking away, you actually break in that cycle of like negative energy going on. And so when you come back, then you can basically say, okay, well, how about we revisit this with the fresh eyes now? But it's really important to, in the way you say it as well, right? Because you want to stay connected with the person, if you want to stay connected with them, of course. And you could say, would you excuse me? I mean, I'm not sure if this conversation is actually going in the right direction. Or you can not even say that. You can say, would you excuse me? I actually have a client meeting coming up right now, but I would love to continue our conversation right after that, or like tomorrow. Are you available tomorrow? Do you see how there was no like me versus you versus me? It's like you're still staying connected with them. Like, I still value you. You're important to me. Just because you're angry doesn't mean that I'm going to like not talk to you anymore. But at the same time, you're also showing that you're shifting gears to shift the energy. And it's another interesting part is that other people's emotions is not your responsibility. Unless you're doing something hurtful, that's different. But usually, when we behave like decent people, right? If someone gets upset about something they don't like, or the conversation is not going the way they wanted, they also need to take care of their own energy and their own emotions. So it's not your job to calm them down, if that makes sense. Okay, we have a comment. Okay, thank you, Emily. Awesome. And so basically, then you come back and you respond to them saying, like, I would love to have this done this way. Is there any possibility that we can look at it from this perspective? And then you take it from there. Okay, exercise hot buttons. And I'm going to teach you now how to actually shift your energy and work with your emotions when they arise, when you yourself feel angry or frustrated or upset about a situation. So take a moment right now. Alex, I don't know if you're driving or not, but you can do that when you get home. Um, Sit comfortably with your feet straight on the floor, with your back against the chair, tall and comfortable. And then what you do is we're going to take 10 deep breaths slowly through our nose and breathe out through our mouth. Okay? So take a slow, deep breath in and breathe out. If it feels good, you can always close your eyes. Breathe in, breathe out. Breathe in, breathe out. As you take a breath in, feel the air going in through your nose into your lungs. And as you breathe out, feel the air leaving your body through your mouth. Another breath in. And breathe out. Breathe in. And breathe out. And now, as you continue to breathe, notice, actually bring up the situation, the person, something that upset you, or that you are still feeling maybe anger or upset about. Bring that up into your consciousness right now. Whatever that situation is. And as you continue to breathe, notice what arises for you, where that emotion is in your body. It could manifest as the feeling of tightness, discomfort, and even pain. So notice where it is. And as you breathe in and breathe out, you bring your energy of attention to that spot. You bring your energy of attention there. And look at it, observe it. Pull it out. Allow for yourself to feel this emotion right now. Whether it is loneliness, whether it is anger, rage, frustration, or sadness, or being upset. As you're breathing, feel the emotion. Allow for it to go through your entire body, all the way up. And feel it leaving your body. And as you're releasing it, feel the release, the feeling of relief coming over you. And take another breath in. And gently come back into your center. And so as you're coming back, I'm going to continue sharing that you can use this technique anytime. And what happens is that the more self-aware you become and the more you learn self-regulation, the easier it becomes for you to manage your emotions, and the faster the time of you processing the emotions become. So essentially, your time, your emotion and energy management becomes so spot on, so fast that even somebody made you angry, instead of taking your time to release that a week later, which used to take me for sure, sometimes even a month when I wasn't self-aware, now it takes me about maybe an hour or two to say, okay, well, this happened, got it, this is the emotion, I understand it, can I release that? Yes, and I work with myself. The key here is for you to be with your emotion, is for you to be with yourself, whether it is fear, anger, frustration, blame, shame, whatever that is. When we're there for ourselves, we build that self-confidence and that inner power. Okay, any questions here? Okay, wonderful. Let's move forward. Mindset. Mindset is super important because the way we think is how we truly create our life. So what you think, you become. Buddha said that thousands of years ago, and it is true to this day. So sometimes when we don't feel good emotionally, a technique for this would be to check with yourself to see what are you thinking at that moment? What are you thinking to yourself? And then start listening to your internal dialogue. There was once a story for myself. That was probably about 4 years ago when I remember drinking a tea in the morning and looking out the window, and I really, really didn't feel good. It was such a heavy feeling, but everything around me was wonderful. I live in a wonderful house. I have a great husband. Things are going well. I enjoyed my job at Harvard at that time, and I couldn't quite understand what is it that was causing this such an unpleasant, heavy feeling. And so, following the Esther Hicks and Abraham Hicks and Maxwell, John Maxwell, and a lot of other leaders, I started thinking to myself, okay, well, what am I saying to myself? And the thing is that I couldn't quite pinpoint the thought because I was thinking it for so long that it turned into this kind of like blur. It just turned into a psychological state, an energy state. But what I started doing is I started pulling, listening into more, and started pulling by the thread, like a ball of yarn. And you just keep pulling and pulling and pulling until you come to the very end, to the other end of the string. And what I heard myself saying to myself, oh my goodness, I would have never said that to anybody else, like in the entire world. But this happens to us because we're just such strong critics for ourselves. So I invite you to start listening to your internal dialogue, and you are able to shift the way you feel when you shift the way you think. Does that make sense? And yeah, so are you talking negatively to yourself or positively? And so we can shift the mindset. And this is the cool thing. This is where our power lies. You can always ask yourself, if you're afraid of something, what if it works out? What if I can do it? Right? If there's a lot of things on my list to do, and I have to prepare for this speech, and I have to do this marketing campaign, and I have so many clients, oh my goodness, how am I going to manage all of this, right? And there's sometimes this fear creeping in, and sometimes this uncertainty, and that's how we get ourselves into the feeling of being stuck, because we don't believe that we can do it. But when we start asking ourselves, but what if it works out? There's nothing to it. I mean, it's easy, right? We start opening up our mind, our heart, and our will to greater opportunities. I think I can, and I know I can. Okay. So Dr. Carol Susan Dweck identified two mindset types: fixed, or I call it limiting mindset, and the growth mindset. So the fixed mindset is truly one, and you probably have met people like this who believe that, well, this is how I'm born. There is nothing I can do about it. I'm not going to change. Usually people with a limiting mindset are really intimidated by the successes of others. They give up easily. They don't follow through. And oftentimes they avoid challenging because they're too scared that they won't succeed, right? And so what ends up happening when we are in the fixed mindset mentality, people who operate at this level, they usually plateau really early in life and don't achieve their full potential. So most of them feel unfulfilled. And I would even add that the fixed mindset correlates with the victim mentality in a way, right? Whereas life happens to me, everyone is to blame, right? So lack of taking responsibility for one's own life. But when we start shifting our mindset towards the growth, and we open up our mind to the possibility of it could be better, our life can change if we actually change ourselves, This is where Dr. Carol Susan-Dweck's growth mindset comes in really handy, because developing that basically shows us that we can embrace any challenges, we can learn from them, we can be inspired by the, successes of other people, and it can help us get to the next level ourselves. And we can lead to want to learn more about ourselves and the world. And so people who start operating at this higher level of thinking and mindset and consciousness, they usually reach a pretty high level of achievement in life and a greater sense of free will, right? So they have the agency to be themselves, to do what they love. And there is also the next level. The next level is the conscious leader mindset. This is a method that I developed. It's called the conscious leadership method. The idea that you can become the conscious leader and creator of your life. And the idea is that it's evolution and growth over lifetime. You will never get it done. You will never get it wrong, right? You probably heard this from Abraham before, Abraham Hicks. Taking full responsibility for everything that has happened and happens in your life. Understanding that you are creating that either consciously or subconsciously, even the negative moments as well as the positive. And then people who step into the higher level of consciousness, when they're able to be self-aware, situationally aware, they develop this inner observer where they start deciphering and understanding, this is for me, this is not for me. I'm going to go this way, but I will not go this way. And this is when you start consciously creating your experiences, your lifestyle, your career, family, and friendships. And you pick and choose very specifically and consciously what matters to you and how you want to show up in your life and how you want your life to be. And at this level, we view setbacks as stepping stone to growth and success. And when it comes to interacting with other people, we start collaborating with people. Not only that we get inspired by the successes of other people, but we invite them into co-creating something amazing. And this is when a greater sense of fulfillment and freedom to be oneself comes in. And it's truly amazing to see what my students and clients end up achieving once, several years down the road. And there is nothing that you can't dream of, do, or have. It's all at your fingertips. So how does it look like when we are thinking to ourselves? So the fixed mindset could be saying, well, I'm not really good at dancing, and there is nothing I'm going to do about this, right? So I'm just not good at dancing. Growth mindset is going to say, well, if I practice maybe 3 times a week, I'm going to learn how to dance. And the conscious leader mindset is going to say, well, I see myself as this amazing, famous dancer, and I put all the effort in the world for myself to build that future, right? For the feedback part, this feedback is wrong and the person doesn't know what they're talking about. I know that sounds familiar to me. I used to think that way when years ago. Growth mindset. Oh, this is a helpful feedback. I can definitely learn from it. And then finally, conscious leader mindset. Every negative experience is for me to learn and grow. I listen with an open heart and mind, and I learn, and it becomes my power. So, what your thoughts, they become your words. What your words, they become your actions. What your actions, they become your habits. What your habits, they become your character. And what your character, for it becomes your destiny. Lao Tzu, thousands of years ago, it's true to this day. Do you have any questions about shifting the mindset? Okay, wonderful. Then we will shift to our energy flow. So as you know, emotions are energy. And the line of manifestation is such: thought creates emotion. Emotion is essentially energy, right? It gets momentum going. And because we are like a walking Wi-Fi signal, we transmit the frequency at which we are vibrating. And so we start attracting everything that is on that frequency, whether it is a high frequency or low frequency. And when we look at the emotional scale, where the negative emotions such as blame, shame, and fear are at the very bottom, and then we have the neutral emotions such as sadness and just maybe frustration, and going up to the very top where we have joy, love, and peace. So this emotional scale by Abraham Hicks really correlates with the frequencies. So when we start to shift our mindset, we actually shift our frequency as well. And on another subject, to help us not only raise our frequency, but align for never-ending energy flow, to feel great every day, to have the stamina to be joyful every day, it is truly possible. And one of the things that I always recommend is creating a daily morning routine. So for some people, it could be meditating in the morning for 10 to 20 minutes, maybe doing some positive aspects, looking into what is my day going to be like today? What are you going to create? Say you have 3 meetings today and imagine how amazing they're going to go, right? So expanding on that, focusing on the positive and getting into the feeling of gratitude, whether it is through yoga, through Tai Chi, through some kind of a easy morning exercise. I personally don't like doing heavy lifting in the morning. I'm not that type of person, but for some people it works and gives them a lot of energy. So if that works for you, totally do that. The idea here is to align our body, mind, and soul into one. Because when we are aligned, the energy actually flows down. All the insights and ideas flow to us with ease. Our internal, like our intuition, our guidance, we're able to tap into very easily, and we can hear it. And exercise, of course, walking in the nature, being in the nature whenever you can, especially now that, like in Boston, for example, the weather is wonderful. But Emily, where you are, I think in Florida, weather is most of the time is wonderful, right? It's sunny and warm. So give yourself the time to be in the nature. It really helps with alignment. And being creative. So when we're able to align ourselves, we are in the creative flow. So then our outlook is very positive and we're able to be creative in terms of, oh, this happened, how can I shift this here? You know, back to the example of integrating priorities, right? Working out with your kids, for example, right? Read some funny anecdotes in the morning, share them with your friends. It actually lifts up your mood, and laughter is one of the key elements that help you to raise your vibration almost instantaneously. Of course, gratitude practice, feeling of the gratitude, not only thinking, but also getting yourself into feeling of the gratitude. And this truly helps to turn any obstacle into an opportunity. Any questions about this part? Okay, well, I would like to invite you, since we have 15 minutes, to do a meditation for alignment and well-being with me. And then I'll be happy to answer any questions if any other questions will pop up for you. Okay, so take a moment to sit comfortably in your chair or wherever you are. Close your eyes. Take a slow breath in and breathe out. Another breath in and breathe out. Take a breath in and breathe out. Now, as you continue to breathe in through your nose and breathe out through your mouth, visualize first number 3, then number 2, and number 1 as I call them out. They will be showing up and disappearing in front of your eyes with your eyes closed. Imagine you have a black screen in front of your eyes. Take a breath in. And 3, 3, 3, 2, 2, 2, 1, 1, 1. Continue to breathe as we're getting into a deeper state of meditation. I'm going to count us down now from 10 down to 1. Slow breath in. And 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, and 1. You are now in a deep, relaxed state of mind and meditation. Now let's do a body scan, starting from the top. Relax your forehead, the top of your head. Relax your head, your ears, your cheeks, your mouth and your nose. All of your head. Relax your neck, your shoulders, your arms and your chest. Relax your entire torso. Feel the feeling of relaxation flowing deeper into your hips, thighs, knees, calves, your feet and your toes. Continue to breathe and allow for your body to take on its natural breathing rhythm. And now visualize yourself inside a column of golden white energy of light. Feel that energy flowing down into your body, filling your head, your neck, all of your arms, your shoulders, your chest, your abdomen. Feel that delicious warm feeling spreading down deeper into your knees, your calves, and feeling all of your feet. And as you're breathing, notice this energy expanding outside of your body, filling your entire aura with this glorious, wonderful, healing and protecting energy of love, abundance, and well-being. Now your aura is expanding wider and wider in all directions. And visualize it being surrounded by thick layers of golden white light. And so now only positive energy can penetrate your aura. And now visualize yourself inside the space of pure white light. There is nothing around you, just the white light in front of you, behind you, above you, underneath you, and all around. It's an unlimited space of possibilities where anything is possible. And now visualize yourself happy, healthy, rich, wealthy, prosperous, and abundant. See yourself laughing, having a great time, enjoying your life. Everything is always working out for you in the most wonderful and magical way. Feel the feeling of gratitude for having such an amazing life. Soak in this energy. Let it transform you and open you up to new possibilities. And now gently and slowly come back into your center. Take a slow breath in. And as you breathe out, you may open your eyes. You may move your shoulders up and down gently. Wiggle your fingers and your toes to wake up your body. And come back. How is everyone feeling? Feel free to unmute and share.
Yeah, that was wonderful. Thank you, Tatyana. It was much needed.
Absolutely.
Thank you. I'm so glad to hear that it worked for you. Wonderful. All right. What questions do you have? How can I help answer what maybe you may be dealing with or something that's going on?
Can you touch on the concept of the mirror a little bit?
The world is the mirror, that part, yeah. It's actually really fascinating. The whole idea is that, as you know, because I know you listen to Abraham Hicks, is basically that we are as energy beings or a soul integrated in our physical body. The interesting part about this is that the rules of the game on planet Earth are such that we truly don't remember who we are when we come here. The idea of the evolution is basically to remember who we are and to develop that that higher level of consciousness, that idea of love and unconditional love towards oneself and others. But so what happens as we go through the life we oftentimes forget that everything that happens in our life, we actually create ourselves. So, an example for you, and some of you may know my story when I jumped out of the window when I was a teenager because of the trauma that I experienced when, the tragedy in my life with my parents and things like that. But years later, when I was working with a psychologist, a therapist myself, on another issue, this came up, and I basically asked, why did this happen to me? Like, I didn't do anything bad, right? It's like if we're talking about karma and things like that. So why did this happen to me? And this woman said a really powerful thing. She said, well, bad things happen to good people. To me, this was a turning point because I didn't like that answer. That didn't resonate with me. I know that I want to have the power over my life. That's the reason. And she helped me to shift that by saying that. So when I realized that, the more I started working in this direction with my coach, my spiritual coach, with listening to Abraham Hicks and into leadership frameworks, I realized that everything that happens in my life, I create myself at the different levels of consciousness, because we are such a complex beings. We often think that it's only our body and our mind and somewhere there is a soul, but truly there are at least 5 archetypes of us, of different levels of consciousness, and we create our circumstances from different levels. There are things that our soul wants us to experience here that we are not aware of, and we often call it fate or karma or in other ways, but that was predetermined before we even came into this space on earth. Say, I would like to experience this, and this. So that's one part. And so the matrix of the earth works in such a way is that when we are not seeing ourselves from a side, when we are not noticing and being present, say, for example, we are angry at somebody, but we've been angry for so long that it became like a normal state of consciousness, not normal state of psyche. And we start attracting. The mirror is in the way that we attract things that come into our life are basically showing us, you are at this frequency right now. Right? So if here's an example. When I just got out of a divorce, that was many years ago, like 6 years ago or so. And there were times when I really didn't feel good. It was really hard. And I was struggling because I was lonely and I was alone, like my family's in Russia and things like that. But what happened was that I actually tested this myself. On the days when I didn't feel good inside, when I was angry, when I was frustrated and upset, blaming, whatever it is, like a concoction of things, I would walk down the street as I was going to work. And if I was in that state of being grumpy, right, people looked at me. I saw all the people like looking kind of like angry, frustrated, or grumpy. I'm like, what's going on? And then as my coach sort of trained me to like, look at what you're thinking to yourself at this moment. What state of mind are you in? I discovered that when I shift my thoughts and the way I feel, the world responds in that way as well. So on the day when I woke up and I really brought myself into alignment, I worked on that, and then I'm going out and about my life, walking down the street, I'm happy. Everyone is smiling to me. Everyone's saying hello. I'm like, what is going on? How is it possible? Well, so it is possible. So the world is the mirror in the way that when a situation happens out of the blue and you are kind of like, what is going on? It is showing you something that somewhere in your conscious or subconscious mind, you may be dealing with, or you're ready to release or process. And so this is how I look at this. This is how I teach it, and it truly works. So in that way, shifting from looking at the negative situation as a downfall or a failure or a negative situation, I start looking at this like, oh, okay, what is it teaching me? What is it showing me that I need to shift inside me so that this doesn't happen again? And when that shifts, situations like this don't come back. It's truly amazing. Sorry, this was kind of like a long answer, but does it make sense?
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah. Emily,
But
did that answer your question?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, kind of like how you see the world is like how you feel about yourself
Yeah.
a little bit, right? Yeah. Okay.
but go on
Yeah.
from your explanation. I see something. What do you think? It's your subconscious, from the already pre-program. Even we did not born kind of yet. We already have our information already built in when we just, our spirit basically come here. What
Right.
do you think about predestination? I mean, like we already predestination, our purpose here in this world, at the first thing, and another, this means we already pre-program to connect with the other people, and because this is what I mean. We gone through the process with the good, bad people. This is how we get our experience. But what I mean by predestination, this means we have purpose in our life already, like punct A and punct B. We born and we have to go to punct B by the nature of our existence. You know what I mean?
Right.
And what do you think about some are gonna say it's the like судьба. How do you say it's your
Yeah. Faith. Yeah.
fate? Yes, but the thing is, I would say more in a more like mathematical way. If we all from A to B, and we live only in our space and time here on Earth, right? But we already have timeless. We like no time.
Right.
It's like our spirit is no time, no destination.
Mhm.
But we limited here. This means like from A to B, we just living your we life, and somebody already know how it's gonna be.
Yeah.
We only clueless, creatures here in our bodies, but something already know what existence, how it start and how it ends. What do
Yeah.
you think? Your comments about that?
Well, I think you sort of answered your own question in the way that, we are energy beings and we come from different places. There are a lot of theories about where we all come from, but we do come from different places. And so Earth in the way is kind of like a Harvard school, Harvard University. Souls usually choose to incarnate on Earth because it's one of the hardest planets to go to. From what I've experienced myself, talked with other people who are in this sort of like in this theme, really well versed in this theme. And the idea is that we all have our own curriculum, just like in school. And all of the things, the chapters, as you read the chapters in book, you're basically like the little Super Mario is like a game. I don't know if you guys are familiar with it, probably. Where like this little character and then going like level 1, collected all the mushrooms and goes to next level. Until next level, they have to do this and they face a dragon. So even though the idea of a game was taken from life itself, right? And we are like these little characters. And there's a reason why Shakespeare said that basically life is the theater and we're all actors. And that's true. We all have our own parts, our own curriculum that we need to learn, all the lessons we need to learn in order to evolve as a consciousness. And evolving as a consciousness means that we need to raise the level of consciousness, raise the level of awareness from this to this. So the higher you go, the higher at the different level of the archetype you are, that much more aware you become, that much more powerful you become. And that's the 5 archetypes that I mentioned, is basically, so we have the survival mode, right? The survivor. Then we have the warrior, the wise man, the alchemist, and the king or the queen. And this is just within the scope of this universe. But it gets a lot more complex out there, and I can't even explain that in words sometimes. But what you described is absolutely right. So we're energy beings that we come here for a specific experience. And the thing is that if in this lifetime we don't reach a certain level that we were supposed to, there is no kind of like punishment or anything like that. You just come back and do it again. And that's what the idea of reincarnation basically is that you do that as many times until you're like, okay, I don't want to do this anymore. I just want to get out there, right? I'm done with this school. And that's when, so, and the idea is to develop the Buddha consciousness, to develop the Christ consciousness, to develop the empathy and the unconditional love that all of them, all these humanity teachers were talking about.
Okay, thank you.
Sure. Well, yeah, sorry. I'm listening.
No, it's my kids just came to the room.
Oh, I see. Okay. Hi, kids. Okay, so if you would like any personalized guidance, there is always opportunity to work with me to help you organize your life, career, and business to create more clarity and direction. That's something I always would be happy to help with. The services that I offer in leadership development and training, but one-on-one, I work with professionals, executives, leaders, managers, really to develop leadership, career advancement, life coaching, and I'm also a motivational speaker, consultant. And, this is my contact information, so feel free to contact me if you have any questions. If anything else pops up right after the webinar, always feel free to reach out. I'd be happy to answer them. And if you would take a moment to fill out the survey, I'm gonna stop sharing so I can drop the link into chat. I would really appreciate your feedback, as this would help me to improve it going forward. Okay. I just dropped the link in chat. Thank you so much for your feedback. Thank you so much for coming. It's been really wonderful to see you, everyone.
Oh, thank you. Thank you for your masterclass. It was always pleasure to hear and find something new.
Wonderful.
Yeah, thank you so much. It's very informative.
I'm really glad. Well, have a wonderful rest of your day. Enjoy your Sunday, and feel free to reach out if you have any other questions. Talk to you
Thank you,
soon.
Tatyana.
Thank you.
Thank you. Have a great day.
Yeah, bye-bye.
Bye.